Grandma, it's hot in here. Let me out of the room. You can't. I'm about to go shopping. You have to stay here and watch the house, said the grandmother, trying to leave with her granddaughter in the room, but was lightly pushed back into the corner. The 5-year-old little girl, who usually attends a child care center, inevitably has to rely on my in-laws when work comes up on Sundays. It turned out she was left in the care of her grandmother, who, though took her in, seemed uninterested in looking after her. The room the grandmother pushed the daughter into was originally used by the husband. Now it's become more of a storeroom, with nothing for a child to play with. Moreover, located on the second floor with a large window, it feels oppressively hot even with the window open. Today, with a heat stroke warning alert issued, the sealed room exceeded 35 degrees Celsius. The grandmother, having shoved her granddaughter into such a place, cheerfully grabs the air conditioner remote. Well, time to save some money, ha 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 ha! Without any hesitation, she presses the power button to turn off the air conditioner. Then, with a loud bang, she closes the door, making sure the daughter can't leave the room, by blocking it with a stack of magazines. I'm Evelyn, 32 years old. I live in an apartment close to my in-laws with my husband Nob, 3 years my senior, and our 5-year-old daughter Harley. My father-in-law passed away less than a year after Harley was born. Currently, my mother-in-law Indiana and my sister-in-law Skylar live in the in-laws' house together. My sister-in-law, who lived on her own in her 20s, returned home after the death of our father-in-law to take care of Indiana. Being close in age, we get along like real sisters. While my relationship with Skylar is good, seeing each other regularly, my relationship with Indiana, the homeowner, could hardly be described as good. The reason is, Indiana dotes on her biological son and daughter, and seemed jealous when I married Nob, as if I stole her son. Moreover, when I was pregnant, as soon as she found out the baby was a girl, she made a displeased face. Why is it a girl? If it were a boy, I would have spoiled him rotten. What a letdown, she said loudly, as if the unborn baby could hear. I was so shocked I couldn't say anything back. Then Nob said, Mom, why would you say such a thing? We're about to welcome a new family member. It doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl, it's your first grandchild. But Indiana just pouted without showing any remorse, and later, when Skylar found out about it, she came to our house to apologize, saying, Evelyn, I heard Mom said some terrible things. I'm really sorry. Due to such incidents, not only do I feel uneasy around Indiana, but she also treats young Harley as a nuisance. Nob and Skylar have always scolded Indiana for her attitude towards us, but to no avail, showing no signs of improvement. Since my husband and I both work, there are times when we have to leave Harley at the in-laws. However, given Indiana's usual demeanor, I can't fully trust her. Indiana, who once nearly caused the death of a dog by leaving it in a room with the air conditioning turned off during summer, as told by Nob, doesn't seem to be entirely trustworthy. That time, it was only because my father-in-law noticed immediately and took the dog to the vet that its life was saved, and it later died of old age. Indiana, scolded severely by my father-in-law at that time, didn't seem genuinely remorseful, which makes me worry she might inadvertently cause another mishap. Now, in the peak of summer, even adults struggle with the heat, so naturally Harley, only 5 years old, needs the air conditioning. So whenever I leave Harley at the in-laws during summer, I always make sure to tell them to keep the air conditioning on. Despite my warnings, Indiana always responds with a sigh. Really, such a waste of electricity, making me feel unwelcome. It's Skylar who shields me from Indiana's sarcasm. Mom, don't say that to Evelyn. The cost of air conditioning in the summer isn't a waste. If we're all in the same room, 1 unit is enough. Besides, you leave the electricity on for things you're not even using. Oh, is that so? Yes, it is. Just yesterday, you left the TV on without watching it. And after taking a shower, you left all the lights on in the bathroom and the changing room. If you're going to preach about saving electricity, you should start with yourself. I was aware of Indiana's bad habits, but at this rate, it seems unlikely they'll change. Ignoring Indiana's grumbling, I was grateful that Skylar was willing to happily take care of Harley. Skylar works at a company with almost no overtime and takes the initiative to look after Harley. Harley has been attending a child care center since she was 3 and isn't frequently left with the in-laws. Given the situation with Indiana, we try not to rely on them unless necessary, but our work sometimes requires us to return home late, and sudden work calls can come in even on weekends. On such occasions, especially on Sundays when the childcare center is closed, we had no choice but to ask the in-laws for help. On a Sunday in late July, both Nob and I had work commitments and had to go to our workplaces. Nob is aware of Indiana's feelings towards me and Harley, and is always considerate. But on this day, we had no choice but to have Indiana look after Harley. Be good at Grandma's house, okay? After seeing Nob off, I arrived at the in-laws' house with Harley. I said this while stroking Harley's head. Okay. Harley nodded quietly, but did not try to look up at Indiana. Though she had always been an easy child, the sight of her obeying my words and entering the house made me feel uneasy. It seemed like Harley, even at her young age, could sense that Indiana did not like her, which was distressing. Indiana, I'm sorry. I'll try to finish work as soon as possible and come to pick up Harley. And since there's a heat stroke alert today, please take care of yourself. Turn on the air conditioning early and stay hydrated. Make sure you drink plenty of water too, Harley. Recently, the maximum temperatures have been exceeding 30 degrees Celsius, but today is particularly hot. Given the heat, Indiana shouldn't skimp on using the air conditioner, but when I reminded her, she visibly frowned. I know that. Having to take care of that child in this heat, I wish you would consider my circumstances a bit. Indiana complained, clearly showing she found it bothersome. I'm sorry. I apologized and decided to finish my errands as quickly as possible to come pick up Harley, then left the in-laws' house. However, I would later regret not being more concerned about Indiana's attitude. 3 hours after leaving Harley, as I was headed to the in-laws' house after finishing work, I received a call on my mobile phone. The call was from Harley. I had given her a child's mobile phone to use in case of emergency before leaving her at the in-laws. Hello, Harley? A sense of foreboding made me answer the phone immediately. Mom? Came back a frail, frightened voice. Hey, when are you coming to pick me up? I'm on my way now. I'll be there soon, so wait for me. I reassured her as I walked down the sidewalk. Please, come quickly. Harley said, sounding somewhat panicked. Something seemed off. When I asked what happened, she fell silent. Fearing Indiana might have done something to Harley, I broke out in a cold sweat despite the heat. And then Harley, Mom, help me, pleaded in a voice close to tears. Realizing this was no minor issue, I hurried to the in-laws' house without getting more details from Harley. Upon arrival, Indiana appeared to be out, as she was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps she had gone out for shopping. However, Harley's shoes were in the entrance, indicating she was still in the house. Since she wasn't on the first floor, I went upstairs and saw a stack of magazines in front of a room blocking the door. This room used to be Nob's when he lived at home. Feeling a bad premonition, I hurriedly moved the magazines aside and opened the door. What followed was a shocking situation. A while later, Indiana came home in a good mood. It was 3 hours after I had left Harley at the in-laws. However, upon seeing an ambulance parked in front of the house and a person being carried into it, Indiana's expression changed instantly. What on earth is going on here? Indiana screamed, running towards us, the family waiting by the ambulance with a fierce look. Nob had just arrived, so the three of us, including Harley, were together. Pushing us aside, Indiana shouted towards the ambulance. Skylar! Oh, why? What happened? Yes, the person taken by the paramedics was my sister-in-law, Skylar. Limp and unconscious, Skylar did not respond to Indiana's voice. Why is Skylar in this state, not Harley? Not understanding the situation, Indiana glared at Harley, who was clinging to me. Anger welled up in me at Indiana's attitude, but Nob stepped forward before I could retort. So it was all you're doing after all? What do you mean? Questioned by Nob, Indiana looked away, pretending to be ignorant. Indiana, don't play dumb. We know you turned off the AC and locked Harley in the room. Indiana, realizing she was cornered. That was, stammered. I had heard from Harley what happened. Apparently, Indiana had deliberately locked Harley in a room on the second floor and turned off the AC remote. The temperature in a second-floor room can exceed 35 degrees Celsius when sealed off. Knowing the danger, Indiana's actions were beyond mere harassment, and I was horrified. Despite Harley's pleas to leave the hot room, Indiana went out shopping, leaving her behind. Fortunately, Harley was safe. Indiana intended to turn off the AC in Harley's room, but mistakenly turned off the one in the adjacent room. Probably she confused the remotes. Indiana is careless with appliances and never puts them back in their place. There have been times when the living room TV remote was found in Indiana's room, or the AC remote in her car. Mixing up remotes for adjacent rooms without returning them likely caused this incident. The adjacent room was Skylar's. Sleeping Skylar became a victim of heat stroke due to spending time in a sauna-like room after the AC was turned off. When paramedics said someone should accompany Skylar in the ambulance, Indiana was the first to volunteer, but Nob strongly objected. "Who do you think caused this?" Taking advantage of Indiana's shock, Nob boarded the ambulance. Indiana, watching, cried out in tears. "Skylar, hang in there! Oh, why did this have to happen? It would have been better if Harley got heat stroke." Unable to bear Indiana's selfish remarks, my anger peaked. Before I could reprimand her, "Enough is enough," one of the paramedics scolded India. "Don't you understand the consequences of turning off the AC in this heat? It's about time you take this situation seriously and reflect on your actions." "What do you mean? Meddling in family matters? I never intended to kill anyone. I left the remote in her room on purpose." Even after being scolded by the paramedic, Indiana's defiance left me speechless. Realizing it was futile to argue with her, I also realized I could never forgive Indiana for her lack of remorse. As the ambulance with Skylar and Nob drove away, I decided to take Harley and return to my parents' home. Unable to ride in the ambulance, Indiana went to the hospital on her own later. Fortunately, Skylar's life was not in danger, and after receiving an IV, she returned home in good spirits the next day. There were no lingering effects, so I breathed a sigh of relief. It was right after we received the news that Indiana called us to come over to her house. Nob also had his reservations about Indiana, so we, as a family of 3, decided to head to the in-laws. After such an ordeal, I would have preferred not to bring Harley along, but leaving a 5-year-old at home alone wasn't an option. I expected Indiana might make snide remarks, but no matter what she said, I was determined to protect Harley with all my might. As soon as we arrived at the in-laws, I was yelled at by Indiana and ordered to deeply apologize to Skylar. "If you hadn't left Harley with us, none of this would have happened. It's your responsibility, so apologize to Skylar right now," demanded Indiana, making an unreasonable request. Appalled by her shifting the blame, "Indiana, Harley is scared. Please don't yell," I calmly advised her. However, Indiana, face red with anger, "Shut up! I wish I'd never had to see such a child. If she had died of heat stroke, maybe a boy would have been born next," lashed out with merciless words at Harley. "How can you say something like that?" I yelled back at Indiana, holding Harley close. Indiana seemed taken aback by my retort, momentarily flustered. But then she glared at us, displeased. "Don't talk back to me, the wife. Apologize deeply right now." At that moment, "What are you saying? Stop it already," Skylar intervened, standing in front of Indiana in my defense. "The reason I didn't suffer more serious injuries is because Harley called Evelyn for help. If Evelyn hadn't come and called the paramedics, my condition would have been much worse." Skylar furiously scolded her. I had never seen Skylar so angry. Indiana, too, seemed stunned, being suddenly yelled at by her beloved daughter. When Harley called me for help, saying she was locked in a room, I rushed over immediately. However, Harley's account had some puzzling aspects, like Indiana doing something with a remote in front of Harley and hearing a loud noise from the next room. It was presumed that the remote operation was turning off the AC, but that didn't explain how Harley remained comfortable in a cooled room. Hearing about the noise from the next room from Harley, it struck me. Did Indiana have mistakenly turned off the AC in Skylar's room next door? Skylar mentioned she had the day off for the first time in a while. Could the noise be Skylar calling for help? With that thought, even if it seemed far-fetched, I instructed Harley. "Harley, press the blue button on the remote." Upon my arrival, I found Harley locked in a room and quickly got her out. In the next room, Skylar was on the floor, her body alarmingly hot. While waiting for the ambulance, I gave her water and listened to her story. Skylar had been busy with work lately, not sleeping well, and on her rare Sunday off, she slept deeply, waking up to the discomfort of heat stroke. Unable to move due to nausea and dizziness, she couldn't reach her mobile phone charging far from the bed. The AC remote, which should have been in the room, was nowhere to be found. Somehow managing to move, she collapsed from her bed, reaching her limit and passing out. The noise Harley heard was Skylar falling from the bed. Fortunately, because Harley had pressed the air conditioning button as I asked, The room temperature had started to stabilize somewhat. However, being confined in a room reaching 35 degrees for a while, Skylar's heat stroke became severe. What if Harley had missed that sound? What if Harley had dismissed it as her imagination and not told me? I might not have realized Skylar was there, and in the worst case, she might have died. The thought sends shivers down my spine. To think, I, an adult, almost died. To lock a child in such a room? Don't you understand that's something you should never do to anyone? The one who should be apologizing is the mother who tried to kill Harley. You're lucky not to be sued for murder. Skylar reprimanded with tears in her eyes, but Indiana remained silent. Even after some time, Indiana only repeated but and however, showing no intention of apologizing, which made Skylar give her a scornful look. It's enough. Ever since Dad died, I've been living with Mom out of concern, but I've reached my limit. I can never forgive her, and above all, I'm too scared to live with her anymore. I'm going to move out soon, declared Skylar, finally changing Indiana's expression. What are you talking about? I've always cared for you and Nob. You both are my precious family. Indiana protested, turning pale. Who almost killed that precious family? Skylar snapped back, but Indiana, hysterical, slammed the table hard. To Indiana's outburst, aren't we your family too? Or are Evelyn and Harley not considered family by you? Nob asked, his voice shaking with anger. Facing Nob's question, Indiana snorted disdainfully and laughed mockingly at me. Of course they're not. That wife and grandchild are not related to me by blood, she said, making it clear that she never considered me and Harley as family, though strangely, it didn't shock me as much as it should have. Even if Harley is Indiana's grandchild by blood, I didn't bother to correct her, and Skylar seemed to feel the same, sighing deeply and looking at Indiana expressionlessly. It seems useless to say anything more. I'll pack my things and leave, and after that, you're on your own, Skylar said firmly. Indiana then became hysterical, crying and clinging to Skylar's arm. No, don't decide on your own. You're supposed to live here with me forever. Mom, don't decide on your own? It's time for you to let go of your children. I'm taking this opportunity to cut ties with you. Don't ever contact me again. Skylar firmly rejected Indiana, shaking her off. So, Skylar! Indiana screamed, apparently too shocked, and then ran out of the house. Later, I learned that Indiana had been telling the neighbors she was the victim, spreading rumors that I was to blame for everything. The next day, while we were out as a family, Indiana called. As soon as I answered, I was met with a loud, angry voice, and I immediately wanted to end the call. Before I could ask what she wanted, Indiana started ranting about something that happened that day. Apparently, the breaker at the in-laws' house had been turned off without anyone noticing, ruining all the food in the refrigerator. The freezer contents melted, creating a disaster, and Indiana's awaited drama hadn't been recorded, accusing me of being the culprit in a fit of rage. It was you, wasn't it? How far will you go with your harassment? No, I don't know anything about it. The TV was on when we left, and we haven't been back since. I replied, denying her accusations, but Indiana continued to blame me. You and Harley are nothing but trouble. Just divorce Nob and go. Indiana lost control and even urged for a divorce. It's one thing to be blamed myself, but what did Harley do to her? Believing she had lost Nob to me and letting jealousy take over, she now demands a divorce, the epitome of selfishness. I wanted to scream back, but there were many people around at our current location. Not wanting to cause trouble for my family or those around us, I took a deep breath to calm myself. Then, I cherish Nob deeply and plan to continue living with him and Harley as a family of 3. Please don't make such arbitrary demands as telling us to divorce. I stated calmly. Furthermore, even though you are Nob's mother, I have no desire to associate with someone who intentionally causes others pain. I added, expressing my wish for her to refrain from any future involvement with us. Yet Indiana persisted. What are you saying at your own convenience? Shouting in a shrill voice. I was about to hang up, but then my mobile phone was taken from me by a hand that reached over. The one who took my phone and started speaking to Indiana was Skylar. Hello, Mom? Yes, it's Skylar. Actually, I was the one who turned off the breaker. It saved on the electricity bill for the night, didn't it? Skylar explained with a bright smile. Skylar, why? Indiana's voice was loud, audible even without the phone to my ear, questioning why Skylar was with me. and why she would do such a thing. To Indiana's queries, Skylar retorted, I've warned you several times about leaving lights on when you're not using them, demanding others to save while you don't. Even when I was leaving the house, the TV and bathroom lights were all left on. I told you I'd turn everything off to save, and you said it was okay, so I did. It was for energy saving, so it's fine, right? Smiling refreshingly. What are you talking about? That's not okay at all. I have to buy all the groceries again. It's irreparable. Skylar, come back home right now. Whatever. You can just find new ones, right? Maybe you'll find better groceries next time. Since saving electricity is more important to you than human lives, I helped out. Anyway, I don't care anymore. Bye. I won't contact you again, but take care. Indiana's screams were still audible, but Skylar ignored them and ended the call. Sorry for talking so long. Skylar apologized as she handed back the phone, and I shook my head. No, it was very refreshing. Responding, It's about time for her departure, isn't it? Take care in the heat. It's still hot these days. I continued, to which Skylar nodded with a smile. Skylar was moving far away today. We were at the airport to see her off. A decision she had made long ago to leave the overprotective Indiana. Skylar chose a distant land, out of Indiana's reach, for her new beginning. Her face was bright as we waved goodbye, knowing she looked forward to her new life. Since Skylar's departure, we've kept in touch, sharing updates. She's enjoying her new environment, living happily every day. Shortly after Skylar left, we moved to a new home. Not disclosing our address to Indiana and blocking her calls, enjoying a much more peaceful life. Nob, too, had been overwhelmed by Indiana's excessive affection, but had refrained from pushing her away because she was his biological mother. However, after the recent turmoil, he decided to cut ties. Indiana, having attempted to endanger Harley's life and spread lies about me, is now isolated from her community. Realizing we had moved only later, she found herself without contacts, as Skylar had also left, leading to a lonely life, depleting her late husband's inheritance. Whatever path she chooses is beyond our concern now. By the way, Skylar mentioned she'd like us to visit soon. I shared during a recent call with Skylar, who had settled into her new home, and invited us over now that things had calmed down. Then let's use next month's long weekend to visit her. Nob readily agreed, and Harley excited. I want to go. I want to ride an airplane. We're all looking forward to the visit. When we meet next, I plan to tell her about the new nephew on the way. We aim to watch Harley grow and live happily as a family of 4, including the upcoming baby boy.